program area, but think of the entire campus as well. What is it that's really being done right and that we absolutely have to incorporate into this strategic plan? Please try to get out of traditional paradigms and the 9 dots. Think about that context, the analysis, the trends, and what this institution ought to look like in the year 2000. What's going to be strength that we build on? Okay, can we pass those cards to the corners? Okay, again, thinking about the year 2000, the new demands, the new opportunities, the new challenges, what are major weaknesses and shortcomings? What are current limitations and deficiencies to be changed to optimally attain the mission? Several of you asked for a bigger card for this question, but please be focused and really think about strategic change and strategic leverage. Okay, could we pass those cards to the corners, please? I know these are things you've been thinking about over the past several months because I've discussed most of these points with you before we journeyed to Weston Hills. Okay, as you think about the future of this institution, what are barriers to making the changes, or what are threats that are out there on the horizon to your future? What are barriers or threats? Things that might be roadblocks, dangers, constraints, and then look hard at this fourth bullet, and that's self-imposed limitations. Things that we need to do but think we can't do. The 9 dots, the paradigm. What are barriers and threats that need to be removed, considered, in order to optimize the future and the mission of this institution? Okay, anyone need more time on barriers or threats? Now, this is going to be valuable to the degree that you're specific, you're forthright, and you're really getting down to the real issues. There are no school solutions. We really need to know what you perceive as the key barriers and threats to this institution's future. Okay, now can we pass those down to the corner? Now, one of the things that we said that planning was choices. It was convergence and focusing of an institution on some very carefully thought through goals. And what we are going to do is we're going to have an iterative process, and this is what you thought about some of the key concepts that needed to be in the mission. Look hard at those. Now, we have attempted to group common ideas, and we've still got the original cards, and we're going to go back over those again when we get to campus in terms of summarization. But we're going to repeat this mission statement later today, and we want you to know what the group's thinking is as of this moment. Okay, can we just roll that up a little bit? Okay. Okay, think hard. Okay, are there still more, Wayne? Okay. Okay. Okay, now we will have feedback for you on the other areas, and we still have a number of questions that we need to go through, and we will come back to these questions. And we, for example, after we've been through the questions once, we'll put up on the screen what you said about missions the first time, and ask you to fill out a new card to see if there's any focus coming out of this group on what you think the key concepts are with respect to mission. So with that, I think we're ready to break for lunch. We'd like to begin promptly at 1, and as tries to make you feel good about what's going on and all. And of course, being anxious to know how the morning went, I said, you know, what are you hearing? I said, I happened to overhear a person say, well, it wasn't going too well. He said, well, don't worry about that. That person never had an original idea. He just says what everybody else says. Okay. Let me try to give you a sense of where I think we are. We clearly are in the cycle of strategic planning, and we're trying to focus. We're trying to converge the options and all that are available to the institution, and to pick out of that the most viable and powerful and strategic choices that we can. And again, planning is choice, and it requires you to say that for the next 5 years that A is more important than B in the evolution and the mission of this particular campus. The other is that we will be recycling some of the steps that we have gone through, and you'll have another chance to make inputs on these various steps. They will come back to campus and be drafted, and you'll have a chance to interact. We're planning to have a little workshop for this group again on campus to more seriously consider, spend a little more time in group session and all. But my experience has been that it really helps to move through and try to get some thinking down on the structure, and then kind of see where everyone is and make more deliberate choices. The other is we've asked you to keep thinking about assumptions that we are making our choices on that may not be explicit, that need to be made explicit. We're also suggesting that there may be other planning questions or concerns beyond those that were in the folder that we want to get down and think about. But theoretically, the plan needs to deal with those questions if you in fact think those are the critical questions. The other is that much of the future of this institution is tied up in 3 people that are going to be here this afternoon. And that is the deputy from the regents that are really trying to develop a better sense of system among the higher ed institutions, that are really encouraging institutions to look hard at their unique role and purpose, that are suggesting that that it's far better to have 1 or 2 high-quality programs than 5 mediocre ones scattered around the state. And that they clearly want to make planning goals the driving force in resource allocation. So the other, of course, is the parent institution with Dr. Camel. They have a planning process underway. And of course, the other is the interface with the area of vocational technical schools in the state VOTEC system. And so all 3 of those people will be here, so it's going to be important to think about questions that will help clarify what their thinking is at this time as this planning process goes forward. So please think about questions that need to be put down to present to these speakers so that we have a sense of how the thing is rolling out. Okay, now planning ideally is one of focus and choice. Planning one is strategic leverage. And the other thing, of course, is that there's a certain logic change. And that is that as you get the big issues settled, it tends to give direction and focus to some of the succeeding questions. So what we're going to do is, before we go through the rest of the steps, we're going to kind of give you a sense of what you have said to date. And then we will go through the rest of the steps. And then, based on time, we will go back and revisit each of the steps again. So you'll have a chance to look and say, this is what we said about mission in cut 1. Now, are there some things up there that don't belong in mission, or that upon reflection is really incorporated in this one, or are there new ideas that were not captured at all? And so we'll have another chance at that. Okay, could we go then and call up Wayne, I'm sorry. The second question. Okay. All right. We'll do one while you're getting. Okay. Sure, we'll do. Okay. One of the other key factors in thinking about the future of the institution is what are some of the opportunities that the future provides. And just remember, people, that social problems, unemployment, dropout, untrained workforce are opportunities for this institution. You're a problem-solving institution. So what are some of the real opportunities that you have strength and capacity and vision that are within your mission or new mission, and that might represent major program dimensions, new initiatives, or internal readjustment? What are some real opportunities that exist that need to be on the planning scope for this institution? This could be new trends in the workforce. What?
Y'all got cards yet?
Yes.
Okay.
We have more.
Clerk, please take
Okay.
Okay, need more time?
Yes. Of course.
Okay, if you would pass your sense of the major opportunities that we are confronted with surmountable opportunities. Okay, we're going to go through your inputs today before lunch, give you a sense of what you've said. So we tend to keep a little momentum, a little continuity, and you get a sense of the focus and the interaction of the various elements. We're going to revisit briefly mission and remind you of what you had to say about mission. And clearly, the most significant agreement is that technology is what you're about. You're about technology. And you're concerned with quality, the global community, student success, jobs, opportunities. Okay? Okay?
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Your process of dealing with this information right here, will you group those things in categories in which they seem to fit?
Well, some of them will, I think, further merge. For example, jobs and salaries, business industry linkages, but given the time frame.
Oh, I understand.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You will. In other words, so that the balances, as far as the emphasis being on one particular point, may increase actually.
Yeah, and the thing is, you may, the next time, we may find that we've got 4 or 5 here that all have hits of 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 up in here. And one of the purposes, of course, is to see if there is emerging agreement or consensus within the group.
Because all this really says right now is that the language is constant in those instances.
Is that what?
Is that the language is constant in those 12 instances of those 6 instances.
Yeah, essentially, yeah. But it also says that 12 people thought that technology definitely needed to be a part of the mission statement, advancing technology. Okay, could we go then to the next one, which is role and scope? This is what we had to say about role and scope. You see, some are saying today Oklahoma, tomorrow the world. Some saying regional, which as I understand means multi-state. That you recruit and place and literally become a distinguished regional advancing high-tech technology institution. Okay, again, the idea that we need to preserve uniqueness, tie to business and industry. Several felt that we need to think deliberately about bachelors in technology, retraining, quality and productivity, the new P&Q, productivity and quality. Okay, let me get up a little. Okay, you get a sense of what you're saying about role and scope. Okay, next is the matter of function, I think.
Just one more motion.
Yes. Okay, technical, continuing. Faculty development, this might be a major role in upgrading the faculty of area low-tech schools. Partnerships. Technical update. Right, next is beliefs. Beliefs, you recall, are those fundamental values that we want to preserve. Quality, very good, yeah. Here's a good one in terms of organizational tone. Individuals, people-oriented. A little more scattered out on beliefs than some of the others. High touch, high tech, Peter. All right. Next, I believe, is strengths, is it? And this list were the best features of the current institution, what's being done right, what's in sync, what needs to be preserved. Okay, that we're a caring place, that our strength is our people, good observation, ties to business, flexible, adaptive, quality. Okay. 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 Next, I believe, was barriers and threats over there. Weaknesses? Oh, that's right, sure. Yeah, 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 you're right.
Everything except the weakness.
Okay. All right. Shall I go on with the other one then?
We're ready.
Okay. Okay, a key question on communication, external to what kind of audiences, internal? Okay.
You have to run this. You're trying to save these content, kids do. Save these.
Okay, Elaine, are there others that we need to, any more than that list to move
Yes,
us?
there are. You're trying to save them. You're trying to save them.
All right, those are more scattered than some of the lists, but again, I think it's good that you consciously try to take a look at yourself. You're pointing out things that you're concerned about, and obviously through this process, trying to get on top of them and find a way to turn what's perceived weaknesses into strengths. Okay? All right. Next.
Had opportunities.
Yeah, that'd be fine.
Had that yet.
Okay, what about barriers and threats?
Yeah, yeah, we have something to deal with this.
Okay, number one is financial, and I remind you again to look at one of the assumptions in planning that deals with finance. More students, better resource allocation, productivity, efficiency, private sector. Okay, and the challenge, of course, is are some of these barriers, are there ways to break out of of a paradigm and turn that into a positive kind of situation.
Student evaluation, it goes too fast.
Well, you've got some opinions, some understaffed, some overstaffed. Okay, let's,
He's not through with that
still going?
Yeah, I still got some more, yeah.
yet. Oh, it's interesting.
Actually, I think the reference to you in here is very unfair. I agree.
Sorry. That must be one top.
The other is interesting, what do we mean by community? If we're a state or a regional, is that the town and gown? Is it the state, or what's the sense of community there? Okay. Okay.
That's all.
That's all? Okay. All right, now. We've, what, take that one down.
Yeah.
Have we done this one?
Yeah, it's very, yeah, we should finish this one.
Okay, let's do it. Okay, we've been moving through the steps now of a logic chain. We're trying to make choices, intelligent and strategic ones. We have gone through a series of mission and strengths and limitations, opportunities, etc. And we're now at a point of asking about a program and priorities. And let me just ask, if you will, when this overhead says program, think institution. Just substitute institutional there, if you will. Institutional priorities. And this would be, given the context, etc. Anybody need more cards? No voting more than once here on these cards. What are the most urgent tasks? What are priorities that have strategic significance and leverage? They're long range. They're in tune with the present and positioned for the future. Think institutional priorities. These are the things that just most need to be done. Limit yourself to about 3 at the most. Feel free to go ahead. Okay, no more than 3 institutional priorities, most urgent tasks. Things that we dare not neglect, that we must address. Okay, have we passed in the now, Roy Peters, who will be here later this afternoon and heads the VOTEC system, has a favorite anecdote that he shares, and that is that periodically area vocational technical superintendents come and say, Roy, I've got this great idea. I want to start this program in X. Roy says, boy, that is a good program. He says, now, he said, what's your worst program? The superintendent looked at him and said, well, wouldn't you really rather trade this one or that? Now, Lester Thoreau, who's Dean of Business at MIT, uses the term disinvest, withdraw, pull out, roll over your money. And he points out that if you had all of your programs or all of your businesses or all of your units arrayed from the most productive to the least productive, that you increase productivity as much by eliminating one from the bottom as adding one high productive to the top. So in terms now of thinking about these priorities that you've just identified, going back to the assumption that we had at the beginning that no one challenged, that future resources are going to be on the basis of serving more students, internal efficiencies, productivity, reallocation, tuition, or private sector. What are things that we might drop or withdraw, and or things that we might transfer to another unit, to another institution, that program or activity might better fit that mission than the future one, and in order to invest in higher payoff. One way of saying higher payoff would be value added. What would be the wage advantage over program X, over minimum wage, to the wage advantage for a graduate of program Y? In other words, what value added can this institution provide in wage advantage, for example, to a graduate? That's one way of looking at higher payoff. The other would be that it is a program that helps capacitate and place some of the forgotten half, which when you think of alternative costs and remedial programs and JTPA or welfare corrections, that is equal. But what's your sense of something that the institution might drop that it's presently doing in order to pick up on some higher payoff? It's no fair to say you're going to drop the football team, because that's the easy one for most institutions.
So we're not just talking about academic programs.
No, we're talking about support services. We could concrete we could concrete the entire campus and say we won't mow lawns. You know, what is it that we could do different that would represent a disinvestment and a potential internal reallocation? And that's anything on the campus. It's not just instructional programs, it's support systems, it's other activities. Where might we make some internal shifts from low payoff to high payoff? I thought that was going down off the map.
How do you spell it?
We could get 6 of us in the compressor.
I don't know enough to make that. I make 101.
Yeah, I would. No more than 3. The other would be if you see any consolidation. That might be another way. Or anything that's going to represent a freeing up of resources through transfer, consolidation, dropping it. Yeah. Okay, can we pass our cards toward the center?
That's up there now. There's something.
Anyone need more cards?
Stephanie.
Just one card per item now, people. We'll pack it out, Bob.
What if we have a
See,
whole
we
bunch of
can't be,
ideas?
haven't had one for a while.
Okay. Another important consideration in strategic planning, in addition to those that we've already talked about, disinvestment and so on, relates to the matter of productivity and efficiency, or ways to further empower subordinate units, carry out some of the decentralization aspects. And here we're talking about the issue of deregulation. Do we have internal rules and procedures? Let me tell you about a situation. In about 1940 or 41, the British War Office dropped a procedure that they had established during Wellington's battle with Napoleon. And that was that they had transferred every weekend 25,000 pounds from the Bank of England to the War Office. And held it there over the weekend and took it back. And you know why they did that? Because as Wellington was getting ready for the battle with Napoleon, he was tremendously short of supply. And they tried to rent small boats and shippage and all to transfer men and material across the channel, and the boat owners wouldn't go except for cash. And it was a weekend and they didn't have the cash. So there was an example of a procedure that was in place that the original reason and justification and rationale had gone by decades ago. Now, as you look at the institution, your own program, not just the head shed, but the entire institution, are there things that could be done to streamline administrative rules, organizational procedure, and to optimize subordinate leadership and site management, decentralization? Are there things that we do are cumbersome, multiple layers? Are there things that could be done that would be more efficient, more streamlined, and hence make us more productive and be able to take some of those savings and move them over here into program and impact, or recruitment, or wherever the priority happens to be? Okay, anyone need more time? Okay, could we pass those down to the corner then? Okay, we want to become more specific now. And we've looked at the context, we've taken some initial cuts at mission and role and function and scope. We've looked at strengths and barriers, etc. And we've looked at major institutional priorities. Now, if we were to come up with about a dozen, no more than 12, major goals for say the next 5 to 8 years, what should no more than 3 of them be? In other words, if the plan were limited to 12 major goals, what would be 3 of them that you think ought to be in there? These are longer term. These are longer term goals that would drive the strategic plan and would focus a great deal of institutional energy and a great deal of institutional activity to achieve. And they would be in the mission, they would be the things that the institution needs to do to deliver on this new vision and new mission. Okay, anyone need more time? 3 major long-term goals. These are things that are significant enough, durable enough, that they would command the attention and be center stage for the institution for the next 5, 8, 10 years. Things that you would really hope to have in place by the year 2000. Major institutional goals.
That's it? That's it? That's kind of self.
Everybody else said that.
Okay, now when we are back on campus, we will follow this up with a question about what I call enabling or shorter term objectives, or how or what are we going to do to deliver on these longer range goals. We're not going to take time on that today because we need to get better closure on the goals to make good use of time. But that's another step that you may want to percolate on. Okay, now let me make one other point here, folks, and that is that many of these steps that we are going through are in the outline from the strategic plan of Oklahoma State University. And here is one that's coming up that is exact wording from their area, from their outline. And that is what they're calling key result areas. Key result areas major program or institutional outcomes that you want to be measured and evaluated on. You say you want to do this, tell us how we'll know you've done a good job.
Go back through that again, please.
Yes. These key outcomes are the things that you think are the best measures of institutional success. If you in effect say this is the mission of the institution, if you say that these are the things that we think need to be done, then they're saying, okay, what will we measure and what will we hold you accountable for? Now, you know, a classical one is placement. And, you know, but what are others, for example, that we might well look at?
These are all. Okay, do we need more time on these key measures that you're willing to be held accountable for?
You missed that last part.
Okay, let's take a 5-minute break if there is such a thing. And just stretch, open the doors, let some air in here, and we'll come back and a few people use the official name. Some used other words, and to be very candid, there appeared to be a kind of a self-consciousness or awkwardness about what was the appropriate term or label. And I am not, let me repeat now, I am not proposing a name change. Not proposing a name change. But I am proposing that it might be advisable to think about an agreed upon identifier or label. Let me tell you why I'm suggesting that. One of the very critical principles in public relations and marketing is that you identify symbols or labels that you try to implant in the minds of the public. The other is that in your various media and releases and approach, you repeat, reinforce, and re-emphasize important themes or labels or identifiers. Recently, I had an opportunity to be a part of a corporate merger which involved two professional associations, and they hired Trout and Reese, who are marketing strategists that have written books like Bottom-Up Marketing, Marketing Warfare, Marketing Positioning, etc. Have like 18 million in billings for various ones, United Airlines, IBM, other little companies here and there. And they put together a set of criteria that I want to share with you and kind of give you some of the background. And then at the end, I'm going to ask you to give me on one line or in one word even what you think is the shorthand label or identifier for this institution. That ought to get reinforced, re-emphasized. It would grow out of the mission. It would grow out of institutional strength, and so on. Now let me just kind of walk through this. Okay, we're talking about institutional identifiers or criteria. And one of the first criteria is that the label or identifier be broad. In other words, the tent needs to be big enough and broad enough so that you can get the full range of programs and activities that you foresee in the mission under it. Label criteria 2 is that the... Now think about it. Yeah, you think about it. This is tricky. This is tricky. The second one is that it is sufficiently narrow. It is sufficiently narrow that some of the people can't get under the tent because they're not part of your institutional mission, and it therefore begins to give you a uniqueness and a label. Okay, and this narrowing or focusing is what they call in the marketing game positioning the product or the institution in the mind of the prospect. And unfortunately, it requires some sacrifice. It says, we are this, but we are not that. But let me tell you, that's exactly what the State Board of Regents rep's going to tell you tonight. That's what they're trying to get all institutions to do, is to be very clear about what they are and very clear about what they are not. And to try to have whatever an institution is represent institutional excellence and state-of-the-art programs. Okay. Anybody remember Emory Air Freight? Originally, the leader in the air freight business, and whenever you wanted to send something, you called Emory. Large packages, small packages, overnight, 2 days delayed shipments, whatever. What happened? Federal Express. What did they do? They narrowed the focus on Emory. And what they did was they concentrated on small packages overnight. And they sacrificed the rest of the business. Not that they don't do some of that, but they sacrificed the rest in order to get a focus and to position themselves or to get a niche within the market. Now today FedEx is the bigger company, and in fact Mr. Emory got fired. And so the power of sacrifice is that Federal Express put one thought in the minds of the air freight prospect, and that is Federal Express, when it absolutely, positively has to be there overnight. Okay. All right. Let's talk about pizzas. Actually, all pizzas are divided into 3 slices. Eat it there, take it out, or home delivery. And now, it's Domino, the company that focuses on one slice, home delivery, that in fact is the largest pizza operation in the country. And they have put, through sacrifice and narrowing, that one idea in your head. And in 30 minutes, it's guaranteed to be delivered. Let's talk about department store disasters. Now, we've got a lot of department stores in trouble, Campo, Hooker, Gimbel. And what is a department store? It's a company that tries to be everything to everybody. We got everything. Now, Macy's, the world's largest store, had 6 quarters of straight losses. Ames has filed bankruptcy. Hills has filed bankruptcy. Interstate went bankrupt. Now, a new management took a look at the books at Interstate, and they decided to focus. And what did they pick? Toys. They picked toys. And they thought as long as they were going to pick toys, they'd change the name. Anybody ever hear of Toys R Us? Okay, all right. They do 25% of the toy business. How profitable? Charles Lazarus out of Columbus paid himself $156 million over the last decade, and stockholders didn't complain. Positioning within the market, broad enough to cover what you're doing, but narrow enough to focus and establish a niche. Let's look at toothpaste. Crest focused on fighting cavities. And instead of competing head-to-head, Ames said, well, we're going to give you a good-tasting toothpaste. Ultrabite focused on the dating crowd and said it whitens the teeth. Close-Up says a little mouthwash which freshens the breath. And each toothpaste has a narrow but profitable focus, and they know what their market is and what they're focusing on. Let's take Nordstrom, a department store that is doing well. And one reason that Nordstrom does well is that they own a word. They own a word out of the dictionary. What's the word that goes with Nordstrom? Service. I heard it back there. Service. And that is the word that they have made theirs. And so the most powerful idea in marketing today is owning a word in the dictionary. And it's not expensive. It doesn't have to be complicated. But simple words like cavities and safety and driving and home delivery and overnight and service are examples of words that group knows. So, if we're going to look then at a third criteria, then it's competitive. And that word then should be directed at your competition, and it should symbolize in large measure what your competition is not. What is your unique claim to fame, the thing that you are determined as an institution to make state-of-the-art in Oklahoma. Okay, then part of this competitiveness in labeling is the Sears Die Hard battery. If the Sears battery dies hard, what does that mean the other batteries do? Well, they die easy. Yeah, okay, all right, you're catching on. Okay, now, let's talk about competitiveness and all. And that is trying to position yourself within the market. And of course, one example is the several vodka firms that are all American-based, and then the new firm that actually came in with the Russian bread. Okay, the fourth criteria is that of upgrading. And it's just human nature to want to upgrade. That Junior colleges want to become full-blown community colleges. Community colleges want to become four-year colleges. Four-year colleges want to become universities. And universities want to become systems. And that's just natural. So in picking this code word or label, you want a term that is not time-bound or transitory. It's a term that you can upgrade and think about the future in terms of how viable is that term going to be in the future. They point out that most members of Actors Equity are waiters, not actors, and that most real marketing managers don't belong to the retail marketing group, but to the American management group. And then they say, who does top management belong to? And they say they belong to golf clubs because they've got it made. Okay, criteria 5 is that your label or identifier needs to be future safe. That is to say, it is a word that's going to be durable over time, one that is not transitory, and the one that is not going to limit your opportunity to maneuver and adjust and position within the market for the future. Okay, the 6th is that it is acronym safe. That in the acronym is not vulgar or that it comes up, but people will try to make an acronym. Everybody talks about IRS, IBM, HUD, HUD, you know, the whole bit. Okay, and then the other is a very critical one, and that is that the label or the identifier has to have a single focus. That in that word or identifier, it gives you a single focus. And now, if it were up to you, and thinking about these criteria and some of the factors that need to be considered, and you were identifying the code word or the label or the identifier that might be on the folders for continuing ed as a deal with the name here, or that might be in newspaper ads or appear on television or get repeated or emphasized in news releases. What is the one word or limited number of words that this institution ought to own? That is broad yet narrow, competitive, upgrades you, gives you a chance to upgrade within the future, is future safe, acronym safe, and has a single focus.
So you're not looking for an institution name.
No. Oklahoma Aggies, Georgia Tech Engineers, whatever, what is it? We're not trying to change the name. We're just trying to get that shorthand because no one says the full name, and since no one says the full name, you get 50 different versions and you lose the value of reinforcing that single important code word or the word you want to own that describes what you are and what you stand for. Okay, could we get that and move it around?
I've written 4 down and I don't like any of them. Okmulgee Tech, but this right here. I failed to submit Pecan City or something.
There wasn't anything left.
Let me tell you that we asked this question of the Alliance, and you know what they think. Okay, the one word or shorthand label or descriptor for this institution that could be picked up and reinforced and that gives you a unique identifier meets all the criteria.
We fix flights.
Sometimes.
I guess you want to talk to Rod. Yeah.
Got all the cards?
Let me
Someone still writing?
Let me tell you that, for example, in the New Mexico higher ed system, we have an institution that is called New Mexico Institute of Mining Technology. And there's one word that people call that institution. Okay. And there are other institutions that tend to get known by a single label or name. And we're going to be curious to see what you think that might be. Okay. Can we... Okay, now let me just take a minute to further expand on that last question. And that is that we are going to try to get a group together on campus to look hard at marketing and recruiting. And there are a number of inputs that we're trying to get in place. One, of course, is the matter of the institutional label or identifier, so that you tend to get agreement on that and you get reinforcement, and that word becomes a label that automatically triggers your institution when people think about it. It's the word that you can own meets the criteria control. The other is that Joan and others are working on the matter of trying to get a better handle on the kind of students that come to this institution. What kind of ACT scores, what kind of background, do they come out of metropolitan areas, rural areas, etc. And are we able to get any predictive quality out of that database? The other is that we're looking hard at individuals that do not complete. Individuals that come, start a program, and do not finish. And is there anything in their profile or history that would give us a clue up front that we might either, one, say this isn't the institution for you, or you lack preparation in this area, or you need an upfront, get up to speed kind of enhancing program to benefit from the regular program, or to determine what factors in program appear to be the cause of not completing. And then the other, of course, is to look hard at those that finish, to try to determine their profile of those that complete, to see if we can get at any predictive dimensions there and target and market to those that are most likely to succeed, and then to know what the needs are for those that might fall outside of that profile in terms of compensatory work, tutoring, extra advising, counseling, whatever. So that's one of the reasons. And of course, part of the marketing also builds on the idea that one of the strongest influences on a person to come to a campus is interpersonal. It's not the media, it's not the radio, the television, etc., but it's interpersonal. We just completed a study for a community college in northern Idaho, and we did some surveys of students that were going through the recruitment line, the admissions process. We surveyed those that started and dropped out, and we surveyed those that completed. And there are several things that we learned, and there appear to be some similarities. It's premature to say at this point, but there appear to be some similarities. One, even those who started and dropped out, slightly over half would like to be contacted about re-enrolling. They'd like a contact about re-enrolling. The other, the overwhelming percentage of those who completed, got degrees, and were working in technical level jobs, essentially got no on-job training. Got essentially no on-job training. The other, those that completed, had jobs, would like to come back to campus for a day, once a year, and learn about the new technology and the new things that are happening in their field as a way of trying to keep up to date. The other is that an overwhelming majority would like to come back for an evening or a Saturday program of more than a day to upgrade their skill and to keep going. And those are interesting comments. They confirm in large measure some of the things that we had in the trends of lifelong learning, the need for recurring education, etc. And it tends to confirm the other statistic from the Office of Technology Assessment, and that is that only 8% of the frontline workers in America really get any formal on-job training. So there are a number of working hypotheses, I think, that we can look at. Larry, how does that seem to square with here? Do you think that's likely to be true here as well?
Sure would.
Okay. Are we?
You can show you what's on this.
Have we done police?
We've done, it's disinvestments and
I think it's
opportunities.
disinvestment.
Disinvestment.
Let's do opportunities, and then we'll come to disinvestment and deregulation. We do opportunities. Does this work? Okay, interesting. Lifelong education, continuing ed, the fourth R, recurring education. Recruitment, retention, resumption of training, and recurring education. Linkages. What? Help me on this.
That's the, we give the Associate Applied Science, that's Associate Arts and Associate Science.
Oh, I see.
And the other, another hour.
All right, and training, recruitment, quality. Okay, could we continue that? This is interestingly one that we're working on with the Alliance to see if we can't get some help out of business in that.
Almost that one on retraining could have gone under continuing ed too.
Yes, yes. Yeah, some of these I think can be further combined in response to your question earlier. Let me just next, I lost confidence in testing. Where did that go to? Oh, here. One of the, if you look at the transparency on the covenant, and the heart of that agreement is confidence in performance. Part of that relates here is the longer-term potential that there may be potential students out there who have gone through a Navy training program, who have been a union apprentice or journeyman for several years, who may have taken some other short-term programs, and the need to verify and credential that learning through competency testing and move them up to some appropriate place in your program. May well be a part of that as well. Okay, did you see the rest of it? Okay, here again, continuing ed, telecommunications, distance learning, the status of campus. Okay, we're looking at opportunities here. Okay, any more? Okay, now as you look at these, think that we are going to come back to each of these questions, and you're going to get a chance to make an input again. So pick out some that you really think make a difference here. Okay. All right. Okay, those are some of the things that that you said were opportunities, and it's interesting that they tended to be more divergent. So there's a great deal of creativity here in terms of seeing opportunities across the board. Okay, can we go now to disinvestment? And these are things that you thought that we might cease in order to get at something that was more critical.
We'll get rid of the most of the business.
Well, you know who your friends are. What,
Family enhancement program.
Okay, on, we just, right here, this North Idaho College has a 5-year review. All programs were reviewed. Any program that fell below certain pacement levels was on the block for 1 more year. Part of the sunset review. Okay? Okay. I take it no one wants to leave the room of the meeting, right? Okay. Okay, can we go now to deregulation? Well, the interesting thing is that I guess this is what, requisitions or
Yes.
purchase orders or?
Well, it's a unique,
Okay. So you want to change it to pink, right?
yeah. It took me 5 years to figure out what your request was.
Which one did you guys put that in?
Tom? This relates to the state regions as well.
Huh? Who put delete food?
I like some of these.
You want more or less? You're eliminating less.
We've got faculty parking designated, no one ever uses it. It's the lot over those at campus place. No one ever parks there.
I wonder why that is. There's so many customers that these people aren't complaining with the late flags.
You know, it was interesting on faculty committees and all, John Corbett, who used to be provost at Ohio State, chancellor at Syracuse, and then head of the University of Illinois system, said that many faculty committees became holding tanks for problems, not problem solving. And there may be a need to kind of rethink and restructure those periodically. What is
Public input process, communication. Yeah,
Does this mean personnel evaluation? Or?
personnel evaluation.
And that's in the mix, is it not?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, that's what it's
Is that it? Okay. Right, and what is that?
I don't know what this one is.
It was up there with the,
Have you done progress? Have you done progress?
Not,
This is what you said were institutional priorities. This was what I heard as I went around and talked to people. And I heard this one a lot too.
this one right here has 11. It should be at the top column.
That is the top.
That would be the,
I think that is the top.
Only one person thinks that.
way sorted. Go back to column. 11 should be up
Quality.
here.
Yeah,
That's not right, but we just didn't
should be
have
the top,
time.
he's got the second one in the wrong column, so it's sorted.
You'll see me after class, I'll discuss sorting with you.
All right, I'll be glad to start with you.
Okay, remember that we have one up here, which is the first one, marketing with 11. And then that relates to a number of these other
I think
things like image and. Okay, all right.
News. Yeah, you should just block that.
Merging.
Okay, now think of how this is going to play out with more students.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think that was merging with ABES and that's what merging
The proposed one?
Yes.
Okay. Others? Okay. All right, now we have what, goals?
Administrative accessibility. Huh? You have trouble seeing your administrator? More of them?
More action. You're talking about the guys over there, really. I'm not talking about my boss. I think there just needs to be more interaction. Like this.
Still with us?
Like this.
Okay, here were the major goals that you identified.
Becky gets to put new library beside herself. Friends.
She wrote it 3 times on the same card.
Oh, that's what it was. Those were her 3 goals.
Any volunteers?
If it's cooler, I'll go.
Okay, that's goal.
Open the doors, folks.
Do we have the teenage list? All right, let me just ask that you take a minute before we go to the key measures to look at your question sheet in your folder on questions for Dr. Camel, State Regents, and Dr. Field. Try to get some recorded there. Take a little time to think about it. As we establish that market niche and priorities, then the counter question that comes back from the legislators, from taxpayers, and from yourself is, what is it that we're going to measure and what kind of results are we willing to be evaluated on? And this is what you told me. I don't think you could be more right on than those two. Hey, you've done right, done good.
How about employer satisfaction?
Yeah, yes, of course, absolutely.
Graduate success?
Yeah. See, you could have graduate success as measured by wage level, employer satisfaction, employment, unemployment, etc. Okay?
Let me see if you
I think that meant more employee involvement in decisions and input into before decisions were made.
Kind of a process,
Yes.
looking at how you carry out your functions, okay?
That's the way I interpreted it. Unless someone else.
And we'll go back to these cards and try to be more complete and systematic. Remember, one of the things is how do you measure it? How do you measure it? The question was things we're going to measure and be held accountable on.
No, I don't think
Yeah.
so. Well,
Okay. All right, very good. There's a great deal of interest on retention right now. It's in the federal Congress. It's everywhere, and I think I may have told you I spoke to the well. We have in Albuquerque a technical institute that was started in the late 40s, and when they got ready to start, they visited 2 institutions in America to figure out how it ought to be done, and one was Okmulgee. And the director that started that is now the mayor of Albuquerque, so he did something right. And last fall, they had a one-day meeting of 1,200 employees. And the president was there and the janitor was there, and they had one topic. And the topic was retention. It's a very high matter of interest and very appropriate. Okay, are we ready for the code word? Okay, these were what you said about identifiers.
Cowboy technicians.
Okay. Okay.
Those two.
Right, we got others. Quality in, quality out, quality definitions. Okay. All right. Okay. All right. Now, Bob, do you have any comments at this stage? Let me just give you a sense of what's going to roll out. We'll hear brief presentations from Gary Smith with the state regions. We'll hear from President Camel and then from Director Peters. There will be a reception and then dinner, and then at night there will be a panel of those people where there will be questions and interactions, and Bob will be chairing that panel. And what we would like to do would be to get from you at the end of the session today your question list. In other words, what we've asked you to do is, so far, do you have questions that you want to raise? And then after you hear what they say, are there additional questions that we try to raise tonight after the dinner? Then tomorrow we will go back over the strategic planning steps and ask you to take one more look at each of those steps. Now that you all know what has been said in the various steps, what do you think about the mission? And what we hope is that we can get a little more agreement. And are there things that need to be dropped? Are there things that need to be added? Or can some terms be combined and so on? And we'll move through those steps. And then we'll have those available, and we'll massage them, go back to the cards in terms of accuracy and fidelity and summation. And then those will be stocked for our on-campus discussions. We'll also share with you what the Alliance has said about some of these critical steps, and then break into work groups and give you a chance to discuss several critical questions that we'll have ready there in terms of next steps. And one of the things that we need to consider, and that is that how do you as unit leaders share this with faculty and staff who are not here, and how do we get some of their thinking and reaction involved in this process. So the rollout, as we're thinking about it, would be some additional meetings of this group, working with you on some kind of standard procedures to involve faculty and staff and get their input and reactions. We're thinking about several specialized workshops, recruitment, management, retention, some of those kinds of things. The Alliance will be coming back in, and they're going to be interested in want to know what you said, just as you are curious and need to know about what they said. And then there's some other steps that Bob may want to elaborate on. Bob, would you like to add anything at this stage before we break?
Well, a couple things just to underscore what you said. When Gary and President Campbell and Roy Peters have come this afternoon, basically for the first portion of that is we've asked them to make a presentation. And I've talked to all of them and said specifically things that we want you to address. There may be an opportunity for a question or two from each of those individuals at that time. Depending upon how long their presentation goes. We've given us about a half hour apiece, so we want to take full advantage of that time. And as Dr. Taylor said, don't be afraid to ask them penetrating questions when you put together your questions. We want to collect those before we break for dinner so that we can look at them and kind of organize our panel. One thing we've done, we did also fax them 5 questions that we asked them to answer the same 5 questions at the panel tonight. Those questions are something like this. What's the ideal structure for your organization? What's your perception of this institution presently? What do you think the niche of this institution ought to be in the Oklahoma system of in the Oklahoma system of education? What do they perceive as some of the barriers? And then the final question is, how are you going to assist us become what we want to become? And I've talked to each of them about that. And I really feel confident that they are coming prepared, that they're spending some homework time doing that. The one issue that I hope that we continue to build on and give some serious thought to, it's come up as we've looked at some of the priorities, whether it's been opportunities or whether it's been disinvestments or deregulation, is the need to collectively have that vision for the institution. Because during the last few years, we've made some attempt to do some decentralization, and we've accomplished that, I believe, at one level. But there's probably more levels that we need to accomplish, and that's going to take a great deal of effort and hard work on all of us in terms of conceptualizing that. And then how do we get significant decision making made by the people that are the users or the people that are responsible for carrying that out? And how do we make that process go? How do we have a flatter, leaner type of approach to the decision making process? But before we can have that, we have to all buy into some collective vision for the institution and that level of quality that we want. And so that because then that makes sure that we're all accountable for the same end result. And we can't have that until we know what that vision is and what that level of accountability is, so that we know whether or not the decisions that we make at any level within the organization are in fact going to deliver that kind of quality that we say that we must have. So we all think about it. It's going to be, it's retooling all of us, I think, and accepting a different level of responsibility and accepting a different level of accountability than we've ever done. And it's not going to happen overnight. And it's going to take a renewed commitment to human resource development. We talked about that both internally and externally as far as an institutional commitment is concerned. I wanted to just mention that to you. Then tonight, the panel discussion is that they'll deal specifically with questions. Well, we won't have time probably to deal with 150 individual questions. We'll have to try to group those and deal with that. Then if there are still questions that are unanswered and we have time and they're willing to stay, we have 2 days. Let's just make the most of it. It might be a long day today, but that's okay because it's not often that we're going to get 3 individuals together from those various levels of governance to spend some time with us. And it does several things for us. One is we learn more about them and they learn more about us and develop a commitment and understanding that you don't develop on a one-on-one relationship in the long term for the institutional benefit. So, and as Dr. Taylor said, this process is an iterative process, and between now and next spring, there's a great deal to do in terms of what we have to do to complete this process, and then tie it to whatever level it gets tied to the OSU system, because they're now going through the OSU Stillwater campus is going through the same process. I think we're ahead of them in terms of where we are, but remember, we're going to converge essentially at the same place and the same time. So how that we need to look at that mission of the main campus and as much convergence and consistent compatibility, yet remain a unique institution within the Oklahoma system of higher education. So I think that's about it, except a couple other things. The reception when we break at whatever time that is, I forgot, 5:30. That will be upstairs, second floor. I think you just go right up these stairs. Sunset room? Sunset room. Sunset room. So it's easy to get up there. And I want to encourage you also to take advantage of the opportunity to spend some one-on-one time at that reception with Dr. Taylor and Gary Smith and President Campbell and Roy Peters. Don't spend that one-on-one time, Tom, with Connie. You can talk to her other time. Okay? All right. And Linda?
Name tags have not been important to this point, but the reason they're provided is because of the group that is coming in. So find your name tags, get them on.
That's
so
right. We
that
put 2 in there, so if you have one for the day and one for I forgot
And
to mention.
if I could just direct you back to the materials that were in your folder and that we started with this morning, and that were the planning assumptions and then the planning questions. And 3 of the most critical planning questions in there relate to this institution's future vis-a-vis the state regions and the higher ed system, the parent campus represented by Dr. Campbell, and the VOTEC system represented by Dr. Peters. So teasing out that optimal interface and appropriate division of labor is going to be very, very important. We've got a good session coming up. Let me thank you very much for your good-natured participation, your input, and I think we've got a good base to work on tomorrow. So we'll reconvene then at 3:50 in this room, Bob?
Yes. Yeah.